Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila. This is the Forbes Books podcast, and a great doctor with the last name of Spock once said that logic is the beginning of wisdom, not the end. Back in 2019, World Logic Day was created by UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. They believe that logic can help solve some of our biggest challenges, from climate change to poverty. And one of the organizations chosen to host this year's celebration is Austin-based tech startup Logictry, which is on a mission to make logic and knowledge more accessible. So, here to tell me more about World Logic Day and what they're doing are Logictry's co-founders, Toler and Chris Fronda. Chelsea, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here.
Oh, cool. And Chris, welcome to you as well.
Thank you as well.
So we got to start with the keyword of the name of your company and World Logic Day, and that's the word logic. Guys, I'm old enough to remember a time where people were talking about alternative facts and misinformation. So I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember those times, but the idea of everyone believing in one thing, it's gone. Like, everyone's got different perspectives in terms of what is real and what is not. So Chelsea, I'll start with you. Break down that word logic for me. For the uninitiated, people not familiar with that word, what does logic mean to you?
I think for us, the word logic, and within the context of Logictry, is really about the power of sharing your perspective and your knowledge. And whether that's within venture capital, or that's as a founder, or that's as an accelerator, or in a particular niche industry like climate action with UN, really thinking through the power of collaboration and what it means not to just hold the information that you know, but to share that out with others and allow others to have access and democratized access to expertise.
And so, Chris, is logic nonpartisan? I know it's kind of a silly question, but can logic be nonpartisan?
Well, I do think it has that potential too, and I think that's what's so important about that word, is that what logic means is an understanding behind why someone might feel the way they do about a particular issue. So what's their reasoning behind it? So empathy, can be attained through understanding the logic and the reasoning behind someone's choice. But where it can be nonpartisan is in saying, what if we try to build some of the tools and things that share knowledge in a way that walks people through figuring out what's right for them and not necessarily furthering an agenda. So I think it has the ability to be nonpartisan. I think it has the ability to be unbiased, quote unquote. And I think that's something that we hope for.
Cool. And Chelsea, I have this thing called the entrepreneur's conundrum. It's basically find a problem, fix the problem. So with Logictry, what problem specifically were you hoping to solve with the company?
I think Chris can provide context on the really sort of strange founding story of Logictry within literal days that the United Nations held with UNESCO and the CIPSH, the first World Logic Day. But in terms of why we're coming together and to your question about the problem that we're solving, there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of content being created. But as we look at a post-pandemic world, and how do we come together and bring different sectors together to solve some of the world's most challenging problems, we really feel that helping provide tools and a day to celebrate experts in particular areas that are coming together to solve these challenges and share knowledge and a way for us to make better decisions faster. That's the problem we're hoping to solve. So how do we give access? How do we give access to technology? How do we give access to thought leaders that have spent years trying to figure out impact and action towards the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals? These are some of the things that we hope to address on the day and as a company.
Yeah, I would say one of the big problems that we're solving, and I'm going to share a quote from the Vice Provost of Academic Affairs with UT, said that the internet has democratized information and knowledge, which has given rise to the illusion of democratizing expertise. And really that is, in my opinion, one of the most fundamental issues that we could solve today, is that we have a lot of information, a lot of misinformation being spread across a lot of different mediums. And it's really devalued what we call expertise It's devalued what we used to uphold the importance of a PhD in a topic, but now with just the prevalence of information, it's just given rise to this feeling that now everyone has that same level of expertise across every topic.
And on your website, logictry.com, you say, we empower experts to map and share their logic so others have access to better decision making. That's a big task. I mean, it seems like you guys are trying to cure cancer here. I mean, how do you empower these experts?
What we've created, and I'll say one thing that's more on the technical side, but what we've done is we've created a declarative syntax for modeling human logic, and it's akin to an expert system, which is a type of an artificial intelligence system that's powered by human intelligence, so powered by people. So the what I just shared, that was the very kind of technical form of that.
Mm-hmm.
But what that means is we've come up with a new way for experts to build question-led tools that can give prescriptive expert guidance on topics that's personalized to the end user. And I'll just share as an example of this. When you look at most of the internet today and you read things that experts and thought leaders are sharing publicly, a lot of it's great, rich information about the topic, but in no way is it personalized guidance and recommendation to the end user about how that applies to them specifically. And that is what we're trying to do, is this new type of content that is question-led, that actually guides someone through that personalized, expert guidance.
I would also add keeping people at the center of technological advancements and bringing people together and creating a community and platform, both through logic.wiki as, an actual platform where we're showing thought leaders and their decisions and decision tools, but also for World Logic Day, really the taking the time to remember that people matter and what we've learned and the work that we've done to immerse ourselves in creativity and curiosity and innovation. We really want to help empower those people. And part of that is supporting them with the platforms and the access and the communities and the events to be able to shine a light on, the work that they've done.
And, a lot's been said about AI and ML, but you guys talk about augmented intelligence. Can you tell me the difference between the two of those, Chris?
Yeah. So when we look at, I think we've all seen, some of the things in the media talking about ChatGPT and some of these advancements of artificial intelligence. And, some of these things are, have been quite interesting, right? Seeing the advancements of where AI is today and some of these new interesting use cases. But one of the things that ChatGPT, a couple of things of it. So first off, there are specific use cases where it does come up with factually incorrect information. And then B, the other thing is when it comes up with some of the responses and recommendations that it generates, it doesn't give you the reasoning behind why it's making the recommendations that it does. And that reasoning is a fundamental difference between understanding why the AI is recommending it and us becoming, the end user becoming more intelligent through that process. So as we talk about augmenting intelligence, when you look at the types of things that we create, which is first off created at the hands of experts that have that expertise and knowledge, there's a person, an academic behind it that we trust as an authority because of their credentials behind it. Secondly, they're sharing that information in a way that actually leads people through the logic or the reasoning so that the end user becomes smarter, not just being told the answer.
So, everyone's got an addressable market. So who's your market? Like who's Logictry for, Chelsea?
Logictry is for the world. I think that as we have conversations where people kind of say, but what sector are you focused on, or what area are you focused on? And we really are for the access to education, information, technology, support, community that we see will shape a better world. That's a long-winded way of saying, do we have particular groups that we work with? Yes. Educators, thought leaders, experts. But ultimately, we want to create something that helps all people really learn what they want to learn, be able to make decisions that are grounded in reasoning and logic when they're facing a tough situation that might be emotional. And we're really proud of that. I also think a bit of a funny story on the question of AI and human intelligence and the power of Logictry. We were on a call with Tim and Tan for Austinites. You might know them as those that helped dress up parties in Austin after the pandemic, but we're partnering with them on a few projects. And Tim kindly told Chris and I, he goes, I spent hours and hours and hours building this flowchart, and you've just made it so simple. And we both took that moment to recognize that doesn't mean that people and humans don't matter. Wow, is that powerful that he spent all of that time? But if we can simplify that in a way that people across the world can better access it, that's what we're here to do. So we partner with people.
Let's go a little startup background, because I know like with VC and people that invest in companies, they're always looking for like the next great thing. They're always looking for a widget or an app that's going to make millions of dollars. How do you go about building something like this? Because like I said, these are lofty goals. I joked about, it's curing cancer, but like, how do you approach someone who, a potential investor, a potential VC angel, what have you? How does that even begin? Because you guys are blowing me away, and I'm not very bright. And I know a lot of these investors out there aren't as smart as you guys. So how do you build a company like this?
I'll start off with one thing, and that's a little bit of the irony in this is the types of content, for example, that we have the ability to build with our platform is actually systematizing the due diligence process for investors. This is something that, just as a quick aside, we've helped funds and firms with, of actually systematizing that so that there's something digitally that can walk them through it. So I'll share that first. The second thing that I might address is, as we look at companies, there's of course the glamour of let's get on to the next big thing that I put some money in and I get $5 out. But I think that, and I'm going to let Chelsea speak a bit more to this, but at least from our side of it, we see a growing wave of impact investments and impact related startups where, even though having the right unit economics and having the right profitability and growth, all the different things like LTV, CAC, ACV, even that, looking at impact and what does this company as a brand, as a mission, we see, at least from our side of it, of that being the bigger value long term. And I'll let Chelsea.
Yeah, I'm happy to chime in, and both as a co-founder of Logictry, but also an impact investor with a few different communities like Nova. And one of the reasons that Olivia, my co-founder, and I helped start Nova was we wanted to prove the concept that you can invest in impact without sacrificing returns. That things like we're doing with World Logic Day and Logictree and Logic Wiki, this concept that you can invest in and gain, yes, maybe the next big thing, but you can also have a focus on how does this serve others? How does this serve a greater purpose and humanity? And I'm really proud of what we're planning to do in the future to do that with Logictree.
And I noticed on the website too, you mentioned that Logic Wiki is currently an invite-only program, and you're looking for experts to share their expertise. What kind of experts are we talking here, Chris?
Yeah, well, so we are talking about cross-disciplinary experts. You asked a bit ago about, can Logic be nonpartisan, and what we want to build with this wiki is a source of the highest quality, unbiased expert content that actually can walk anyone through understanding a topic, but in a way that feels safe, like they're not being sold to something, but rather that they're just being educated on what's right for them. For us, the individuals that we're looking for, they might be the philosophers, the logicians. These are some of the maybe less glamorous departments that we would talk about, but ironically also the departments that created World Logic Day and the UN's initiative behind that. The other types are the thought leaders that do actually care about, more than just furthering their agenda, but they would want to align with something that's around, I don't care what decision the end consumer makes, within reason, of course. I just want to make sure they're educated that when they make the decision, that they made the right decision. And, if we think about a democracy, having a democracy work isn't about pushing one side or the other. It's about having voters that are informed about what's right for them and being able to think through that. And that's the future that we want to see.
I do think in terms of Logic.wiki, a bit about our strategy here is we are releasing collections out. And the way that we're formulating who's a part of these collections is we look at, okay, who are really great, either global or reputable, credible, large partners, established partners that we have that we can work with. But then we also add in founders of companies and nonprofits that round out that collection to make sure they sort of quote unquote go to market together, but they get to promote each other out. And so an example is, we partnered with UN SDSN and UN Global Schools around education, right? And they're a really great global partner, and we're really thankful for that. But then we've also included things like Feely or 212 or Tax Taker that are really approaching things from an innovative way and could benefit from access to those global partners and being a thought leader in that collection.
And I'm going to get crass here and talk money because as I was looking at your site, there's a little tab that says, what does it cost? And it says, the Logic Wiki is free. So how do you make money, Chris?
Yeah, so we make money from the technology platform that we sell. And so when we work with, for example, private equity firms helping to systematize their due diligence processes, or we work with companies like National Instruments doing sales enablement, distributor enablement. We work with companies like RSM International, which is a large global accounting firm, doing technology maturity model assessments. So these are the areas where we sell a technology that helps in digital transformation. It helps in knowledge transfer. That's the areas that we make money. This wiki is entirely free, and for us, it's really the mission behind what we want to see globally around just the education and fixing this bigger macro issue that we see with the spread of misinformation.
Got it. Forgive me for that question. I'm sure people listening right now are like, "No, this sounds amazing, but how are they funding and making all this money work?" So now it's all coming into focus. So how have those potential partners, that you've listed off, what are they getting out of it? What at the end of the day, once they work with you and your team at Logic Wiki or Logictry, what's the pull from working with you guys?
Yeah, so the two are very separate. So I do want to make sure that that's clear. So there's the Logic Wiki and there's Logictree, both of which do involve companies, but they are completely separate. So I'll talk to each individually.
Okay.
So Logictree, the technology platform, we sell that as a knowledge management solution. So I'll just say an example is Confluence or other types of knowledge management systems that you might look at today. And what they get out of that is they get a technology that can help them build standard operating procedures, sales playbooks, just helping them overcome ramping new hires faster and overcoming some of the things like the Great Resignation. So how do they systematize that expert knowledge?
Okay.
So that is what, with Logictree, they really get out of that, the just scaling of their institutional knowledge. And then Logic.wiki, that is about aligning in this bigger mission around just creating and democratizing more of this expert knowledge for the betterment of the world. And so for that side of it, what our corporate partners get out of that is they get the recognition that they were the ones that authored and shared their expertise on this wiki.
Okay.
So it becomes for them a form of a marketing on that side of it.
Got it. So let's talk about World Logic Day, which is coming up later this month on January 12th. Chelsea, what can you tell us about that?
World Logic Day is hosted in 62 different countries around the world. We're really grateful to be one of the hosts for the United States. And we're also grateful to have some great organizations that are a part of the UN and their team members actually coming in for the day. But one of the things that I think we're really proud of to help demonstrate at World Logic Day is this concept of local and global and the power of addressing the UN Sustainable Development Goals, but also with curating logic and different experts in a variety of different industries. So while we'll, yes, have global leaders that we're very excited to fly in and join us, we'll also be highlighting some of the great partners that I mentioned some of them, but Feely or Div Inc. or Dr. Art Markman in the University of Texas or Kendra Scott Women's Entrepreneurial Leadership Institute, to really say, care about your home community, support those leaders that are in your backyard, but let's also think about how we can work together to address these global challenges around the world. So really excited for the celebration, the countless partners that have stepped up and said, we want to be a part of this and make this happen, and look forward to hosting several World Logic Days together in the future.
Awesome. And Chris, what do you hope people get out of people attending, reading about it? What's your big takeaway for folks that you want to get?
I think the awareness of the importance of logic and education, and I'm just going to give a quick background story, make this very quick. But I had been just a 15-year technologist and developer prior to doing this, and in August of 2018, I became very interested in just researching formal logic, which is a course taught in the philosophy department at Oxford. That I went through their course about just formal logic, and which, if you look at that topic, it really is about dissecting argument and how we reason and how we understand, what is truth in today's age with all of this abundance of information and misinformation. And you might have heard of logical fallacies, which is something that, these are some of the examples of just what formal logic would educate upon. And the UN's World Logic Day was also started by the philosophy department under the same premise that logic is the basis of reasoning, and it's how we've built the sciences, is how we've built what we have today. And so I'll just share one interesting note is we actually started the company Logictry on the exact same day that the UN held the very first World Logic Day on January 14th of 2019, under the exact same premise that there needs to be more awareness of the importance of logic in education. So if there was one thing that I could hope for out of World Logic Day, beyond just bringing amazing people together, sharing amazing ideas, I think just having this awareness of the importance of teaching logic in the education system and trying to end a lot of this I believe this misinformation problem really is solved through education.
When I talk to entrepreneurs, they always talk about the importance of timing. And I remember last month I spoke to Encore Jane, who the company built the loyalty program credit card so people can pay their rent using a MasterCard. I said to him, your company basically took off in the middle of the pandemic because people were looking for solutions to pay for rent. And I wonder about timing when it comes to Logictry. 2019, you mentioned it. That's around the time when, we were joking earlier about, people debating logic. But how important is the timing of when you guys started this? Because could Logictry have existed 15 years ago, 10 years ago? Would there have been a need for a Logictry long ago?
So to answer your first question, you said, could it have existed 15 years ago? It's in some form, it's always existed, but I would say the internet, before we've gotten to this point that we're at today, where we see just some of these problems that have happened with the internet, right? The internet's been great for so many reasons and so many innovations and connecting with people globally, and just there's so many great things that have come out of it. But one of the challenges has become that problem that it's democratized knowledge, and now given this rise to the illusion of democratizing expertise. And so now the timing, there's a reason why that the UN created World Logic Day under this premise, because they saw in 2018 that January 14th, 2019, they needed to create a day yearly and they started it with Harvard, Stanford, Vanderbilt, as some of the partners for that day, they needed to create this day highlighting that importance. And with happenstance, we didn't know this at the time, but Logictry really was created on the exact same day that the very first World Logic Day was held. So I think the timing for something like this to come into this is what the world needs, I believe, at this time.
I think understanding the importance of the origination story and timing is important. And then I also think the importance of why hosting World Logic Day in the US in Austin, Texas in person for the first time is important. I think a lot of us spent a lot of time in reflection and insight and understanding ourselves and humanity and what's going on in the world during the pandemic. But what I see now is a return to innovation, a return to creativity, a willingness to collaborate and open our networks in a way that I wasn't seeing a few years ago. And so not only do I think having Logictree as a support platform, but also having people ready to engage in some of these conversations to gain the support that they would from something like Logictree, that I'm really excited to see what happens. I equate it to thinking about, maybe this is our generation's version of the roaring 20s and wow, what an opportunity to be a part of, hopefully a lot of celebration and new ideas and new creativity around solving problems.
And Chelsea, Chris had mentioned he's been in tech for over a decade. I'm just curious, what was it like putting the team together? Was it a tough sell? I mean, because I know people are always looking for stock options and spin-offs and futures and all that stuff. But how about putting that team together? Can you talk to me about that, Chelsea?
I can. I think I can share my personal experience. I was in grad school and I was a part of a team of women that were all under the age of 30, with the exception of our executive director, who I think was maybe 30. And she took a chance on a lot of us. And she had a, really big idea to hosting a giving day in Austin and what goals could we reach together? And I remember thinking at the time, wow, I don't know if this is going to work. But I got to learn from Celeste, what was possible when she made intentional partnerships? What was possible when she looked at scaling through network partners and channel partners? And that team of 5 raised over $10 million in 24 hours for 750 nonprofits. I say that to just kind of explain, I had the experience of understanding small teams can do incredible things with the right partners at the table. And I think Chris and I both have had the intentionality with building a small but really highly talented team, and also finding the right partners to help us, scale this and help make this an incredible experience. So I'm grateful for what scaling the team will look like, but I also think we've put a lot of thought and care into what do successful partnerships and team members gain out of being a part of this.
And Chris, were you a grizzled tech vet where you're like, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to get anyone to buy in on this idea, or were you very hopeful from the start?
Yeah, I mean, I was very hopeful for the start, and I think that the biggest reason that I was hopeful for that is because a lot of this company began for me on a why, and that is, and the easiest way to describe that is it was more than just about the for-profit motive, and it was about something bigger than that. So I think that is, I think that we're seeing, with consumers today, that where a brand stands, what they value, and what's the social impact that they're having in the world that goes and beyond and transcends just the financials, is becoming more and more important. And that is what we began with. So we created a company centered around keeping humans and human intelligence ahead of artificial intelligence, keeping humans at the center of it. If you just fast forward to today where ChatGPT launched, and I'll just mention that, ChatGPT comes out and, it's an AI that just builds truth on its own, and there's no person behind it. There's no expert being recognized for anything. It's just this black box of an artificial intelligence claiming it knows what's truth. And I view that a bit dystopian. I see the bright future forward where we have the people, the academics, the experts, the thought leaders central to the thesis of what we're doing. And we are pushing forward in this new wave of education that we're going into.
I remember years ago when I was a young radio reporter, I went to an event where Brandy Chastain was at. I don't know if you guys remember. She was the soccer player who won the World Cup back in the 90s, and she ripped her jersey off, and it was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and she became an icon. And at the time, she got a lot of flack for it because a woman taking our shirt off in front of the world was offensive to people. And I was at an event where she was at, and there was a lot of a negative vibe to it, and I decided to ask a question that was on the polar opposite. This was like mid 90s. And I said to her, Brandy, there's been so much talk about your jersey, but one of these days you're going to be walking down the road and you're going to see a little girl wearing a Brandy Chastain jersey. How will that make you feel? And she proceeded to like break down and cry because she had never thought about that moment. She'd always been ultra competitive. All she cared about was winning titles with her friends on this World Cup team, and the idea of someone wearing a shirt with her name on the back was just foreign. And to her, that was the moment where it all came together. It was like she was this little girl, and now all of a sudden these little girls are going to be following her footsteps, and now they're probably the ones that are winning World Cups and playing for the U.S. soccer team today. To her, that was when she realized, man, I've come all this way, and that little girls will soon have a jersey with the name on their back. When will you guys both know, and I'll put this out for both of you, when will you know that all of your hard work is paid off? Is there a moment, or is this one of those things where, people talk about it's not a destination, it's a journey? Do you guys have an idea of when you realize that everything that you've been working for since 2019 has been accomplished?
For one, just thank you for sharing that story. As a woman, and I joke, but it's kind of funny. I'm a daughter of a patent attorney and technologist, but now as a woman in tech, but also a woman in impact, I think I'll know part of my work has been done and accomplished when every girl gets to feel comfortable being that bold and staying true to whatever being her means, and that she has access to the technology, to the education, to the partners, to the mentors, to the people, to be brave enough to just be her. So for me, that's when I'll know our work's been done.
For me, I think just seeing how we are going to help shape some of the education system and seeing if we can have an impact on some of these things about just, helping increase the importance of logic in education, and also seeing if we can help make an impact in this problem with misinformation. So I don't know that we have, any hard numbers of what we're saying we have to get to this for success, but we're going to do our best to drive as much of an impact in ending misinformation and really helping to push the importance of logic in education.
Wonderful. A great way to end it on that. So for folks who want to learn more about the organization, where's the best way to look? And then where can people find out more about World Logic Day?
For now, going to worldlogicday.com, I think that's one of the best places to start. So that's the conference that we're hosting on January 12th. And I think that's a great place to start. And then from there, we have logic.wiki and Logictry, spelled logictry.com. And I'll just make one reference on that, by the way. We named it that because of history. So history, chemistry, Logictry, kind of the science of logic. Cool. So those are the three, but worldlogicday.com is an absolute the best place to start.
I would also just add on Instagram at LogicWiki. We are releasing some of our partners and partner releases and sharing. We're kind of trickling them out, but sharing who some of the major key players will be at World Logic Day from now up until January 12th. So Instagram's a great place to see some of the speakers and partners involved.
Wonderful. And thank you both for being a great sport, because I know sometimes when you guys are trying to make big things happen, and then when some lug nut like me starts talking about money, it can be kind of weird. But I'm sure there's entrepreneurs out there listening, be like, wow, this sounds amazing. How can I do something like this, but also make money? So thank you for being good sports, and thank you for doing what you're doing. I think this is a great organization, and I cannot wait to see what happens with the next World Logic Day, coming up in 2024, 25, 26 in the future. So congratulations on what you guys are doing. Chelsea, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you, Joe.
And Chris, thank you again for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you as well. Appreciate the time.
You're welcome, and that's it for this episode of the Forbes Books Podcast. If you enjoy the show, make sure you take a second to subscribe so you automatically get new shows when they drop. Also, if you have a minute, I would love if you left us a review so more amazing entrepreneurs like yourself can discover the show. And please don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.